I mean,
so that I can see,
if you want, it's up to
so that I
you.
can get distracted by chat.
Right. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Coffee Break, week two. I'm Spencer Campbell. I started doing Coffee Break to sit down and have fun chats with my good friends across the indie RPG design space. And this week I'm here with Dan Phipps. Dan, hello.
Hello,
Why don't you tell
how are
folks?
we doing?
I'm doing great. Why don't you tell folks who you are, and then I'm excited to talk about what we were just talking about right before we went live.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Dan Phipps. I'm half of Gemrum Games. Technically, I've been designing games since like I don't know, man, like 2013. But a lot of that time was spent just tinkering with my like the game I was playing with my home group and never actually publishing.
Right.
And it turns out if you do that long enough, it like becomes the airplane of Theseus after enough of that kind of thing. And then at some point, I think actually one of the big reasons why I started working, I started Gemrum Games with my partner Collie, and one of the reasons for that was she encouraged me to make a stop doing that and just make a zine in a month. And since then, we've been working together more and more on more collaborative projects. And you might know our work from High Magic Lowlives. We also did Duckborg, the obviously necessary setting for Morkborg that added race cars, lasers, and aeroplanes. And yeah, we're and now I'm in Discord, I think. Anyways,
Oh yeah.
I'm being
Oops.
distracted
Sorry.
by being able to see myself twice. But yeah, that's me. That's what we do.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yes, I had to distract us real quick by reminding folks that this was going on. Yes, we do appreciate partners who force us to get our work out there. Absolutely. That's
Yeah,
awesome. I, you
I'm
know,
gonna end up backpedaling later when it's sort of like, just to be clear, this is not one of those like the creative and the project manager partnerships, but but we'll talk about that in a second because I was just hyping up the Weavers Observatory.
yes, yes. So I want to talk about this in just a second. One thing that I was realizing right before we went live, like you and I, we got into this call, got the video set up, and then we just started talking. And was realizing the thing that I like about this is that I've like talked to you online, like through Twitter and stuff, but you and I have never actually sat down and talked like this before. And I just
Well,
love that it was like, oh yeah, this was really easy to do and just sit down and talk to somebody who I really like respect and think is awesome in the scene.
ironically, the first one-to-one communication we had, I think, was me saying, "Hey, French press video handy? I tried to make some this morning, and it definitely goofed up my ratio." And yes, you did. So that was our first. It's sort of the coffee thing keeps bringing us back.
It brings everyone together. That's a beautiful thing. Okay,
Mhm.
you were just showing me and talking to me about this thing, and I want to know so much more about it. The Weavers and then Observatory, right?
The Weavers
Yeah.
Observatory is the random adventure jam we're working on. Uh, this was one that I want to make sure I get it right because this one was sort of a project that Collie picked up and pitched, internally in as much as two people kind of being like, we should do this. But Collie, I had said, hey, we should do a random adventure jam because one of the things that I want to get good at is writing adventures and writing settings. I think that's something that's really like I didn't care about that, and then all of a sudden it like a switch flipped, and it was like, oh, now that's all I want to do.
Hmm.
And everyone who's anyone's at the Random Adventure Jam. We should be at the Random Adventure Jam. It's the cool kid table. And I was streaming Fallout 1 or some ridiculous thing, and she ran the generator and got the Weavers Observatory as a title, as one of the like 5 drops. And she has an extensive background in fiber arts. There's actually there's stuff all over it, so I'm not gonna put it on the camera, but there's like a loom, like a very heavy. I know because we moved, and I had to, we had to move it. But there's an actual factual like weaving tapestry loom like right over there. So she knows all this stuff, and so we're writing an adventure for Tunnel Goons that's also kind of a relationship game that is for 2 players, and the referee is Fate, the sort of the great weaver of Fate, and the other is someone who has found the Weavers Observatory to ask Fate to change something in the tapestry, and you don't know if it's going to work.
That's
And it's
so cool.
just, and Collie's doing all this really, really sick art. Where one of the things we were just talking about this before we went live, but like one of the things that we're figuring out right now is Collie's making all this like real, she found this, she used Affinity Photo to make this really cool tower image, and then made kind of a sandwich with it's too early, like thick card, and then like some fiber, and then another thick card, and it's been like putting threads through it, and it looks thick. It looks like, hey, that's a weird tower to approach. But then I scanned it at home. It looked bad. I went to Kinko's and scanned it, and it looked better. But the problem is that it just looks like we drew lines on it in Procreate, which is like not the point, like the physicality and the. So we've got we were up past our bedtime last night setting up this like taping it to the wall and like putting a tripod to take a picture of it to try and like make it work as a cover. Like we need to get it, it needs to look like something that, knock wood, eventually it'll like print good. But also to have it not be so precise and like clean that it loses the, hey, like these threads aren't actually supposed to be here ness of it.
Right.
Um, so we're trying to get it out. We're trying to get it out by mid-December because the jam goes until January 1st. But I'm suspecting that people at like proper Christmas time are going to be doing Christmas time stuff. So we're trying to get it out a little early. Not expecting an extension on a 4-month jam. Clover,
Oh
doing
yeah,
back there?
she's back there.
Bringing out that door. That exact same keep the bugs out thing in front of our door
It's the
at our
best.
place. Yeah,
It's the
yeah,
absolute
it works
best.
good. It is adequate to the task.
Yeah.
Anyways, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, so but all this fibers art stuff takes forever. And I gotta write this thing, but it's a super fun project from a writing perspective because it's very we looked at a lot of games and we went with Tunnel Goons because it's the most sort of, I mean, we didn't want to do one of ours. We wanted to do we wanted to try writing for a different system that we didn't get to just change the system if it became a problem. But also it's a bit like, I mean, we kind of want this to be the Tunnel Goons adventure that maybe it'll make you cry a little bit, which is not usually the goal for, I mean, not to presume, but like one of the things we really like about it is that, Tunnel Goons has like, you're a brute, you're a skulker, you're erudite, and it's like, you're not it's such a mismatch for the setting, but in a way that's really satisfying because you're not supposed to be here. Like you're not, you showed up to church in your underwear is like the vibe we're going for in this like this is the oldest tower in the world, and something really important is happening here, and you're not welcome, and you are not supposed to be here, and you're still going. So the fact that the system is a bit of a mismatch is one of the things we really like about it. So I'm really excited about it, but also I have to write more of it than I have because I'm behind schedule.
I mean, it sounds amazing. It sounds so, so cool. Like, not only like capturing the actual like looming experience back there, with everything. Wow, the line, it's like showing up to church with with in just your underwear or something like that is probably the best quote, best pitch for a game ever. So just, I don't know, I feel like you should use that constantly.
Yeah, we'll try and figure it out.
Um,
You know, I was gonna make references to sex workers, but they have just as much right, if anything more, to be at church. But anyway, I don't know.
it's So you mentioned, and this is the thing that oh, sweet, I'm getting spammed. Excellent. Buying followers on Twitch. Um, Here's the thing that jumped out to me, and it's something that you mentioned at the very beginning, which was you were never like an adventure writer or something like that. And then now you just like you feel feel compelled to do it, to like write adventures and stuff. How did that happen for you? Because it hasn't happened for me. And I look at like how I should be writing adventures or example things in all of my games, or how I should make stuff for that, and I just go, but I don't want to. I just because here's the thing. Anytime I ever play an RPG and I run it, I usually just make it all up. I have so little that I actually prepare. So like the idea of sitting down and writing an adventure with any kind of like arc to it just is like my brain just breaks thinking about that. How how do you do it, Dan?
Um, I mean, so I think by running games, you are already doing a lot of the work. Like that's, but setting that aside, you asked the why of it. I, you know, so the year was 2020. So I was on Twitter as one is wont to be.
Mm,
And I know, but and I like it was I came across one of those you heard of these discourse threads where people are real mad and making up people so they can get mad at them.
the best.
And I think the intent of the thread was I think the intent of the thread was something along the lines of, hey, stop putting so much game design in things and go write adventures. And one thing led to another, and I read a bunch of adventures. I read like five. I don't want to pretend like I know what I'm talking about, but it was like it was that creator day that Itch did, so I just bought like five adventures and read them and realized pretty quick, like, oh, these have game design in them too. Like these, you can put this is another vessel for more game design. For when you're writing your game and you realize like, oh, this one's full. This one's full of game. There's no more room for game in this game. Well, it turns out you can put game in your setting and game in your adventures too, which is great. So for all that extra game that you were like, this is pretty situational. This is another rule. This book's gonna be like this thick. What am I, writing a Dungeon Dragon? But you can, in point of fact, if it's a situational rule, you get to just write the situation, and then the rule makes sense to belong in it. Um, I do think, and this was actually the initial pitch before this was coffee talks, and it was just, hey, we should
Right.
talk more. Um, was I was playing a lot of Deathloop, and which is really really good until you find a silenced weapon, and then it's sort of like, oh, you've solved that's
Yep.
the solution of the puzzle
I
all along
I
was
I found one real early on too, and I was like,
oh
"Oh,
no.
this is just it now, huh? This is all I
I'm
do."
so sorry. That is it is 4 out of 5 stars until you find one, and then it's 2.5, and it's very perfunctory. So my condolences. I wish you had had a longer time with that game being hard instead
Yeah.
of just but one of the things I really liked about it is, I thought, oh, this will be fun because it's all about backtracking, and tabletop RPGs don't love backtracking because everything takes longer. So you got to. That didn't work. Are you getting background noise? I think my kids are having breakfast.
No, it froze for a
Oh,
second, but I don't hear anything.
okay, we'll find out. What was I talking about? So one of the things that Deathloop does that I really, really like is you. So there's all these places on this island. You got to murder people because it's a video game. Um, and you go to one of the places where the guy you got to murder is, and you spend all this time, sneaking around and casing a joint and killing security guards and so on. And you're finding a lot of stuff, but most of the stuff you're finding is like A, evidence that you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, and B, stuff about like other places you haven't been yet, where you'll find a computer conversation between this one weenus who's a business tycoon and this other jerk lord who's a scientist, and the jerk lord scientist is like, yeah, all my stuff's at my compound and here's the code, don't worry about it. And that actually would translate really well to something like an ultraviolet grassland, or like a situation where you've got like 5 dungeons, but but you are the first one you do is the hardest, but you're learning things about the other ones, even if it's not as like direct as like, oh, you got the red key to the red door, but
Right.
like, you, by virtue of exploring this place, you're learning that this other place is protected by plant dudes who are weak to fire. So like now you can prepare to go there and so on. Like I think I've been watching a lot of GDC talks about level design, which
Okay.
is very video gamey. But I think I'm supposed to do a thread about this, but later. But you'll get this is the preview. But like when we wrote Ah Geez, the Airship's on Fire, which is an adventure for High Magic Lowlives that we promised we'd make when we did itch funding before itch funding was a
Hmm.
thing and before we knew what we were doing. And uh, that's all based on a GDC talk about Hitman 3 called something like Stealth in Social Places or something, or the level as social places, which is all about not stealth like hiding behind a box, but stealth like who's allowed to be here
Mm.
and what are you allowed to do here and so on. And so every room on the titular on fire airship has a list of like, okay, so you know, here's I mean, stowaways aren't allowed to be here at all, but like if they think you're a passenger, then they might gently ask you to leave. And if if they think you're an officer, then they will then yeah, you're absolutely allowed to be here.
Right.
And sort of that like the assumption of disguises and the assumption of worrying less about, okay, you need to roll a 16 on your stealth check to get in here, and more, well, this is a place of work. This isn't like every dungeon is a place of work, kind of. It's just goblins sitting around like protecting a skeleton wizard creep, but they clock in like this is their job. um, and and sort of leveraging that, all of those social elements, which is something that is very tabletop RPG-y, but like I first encountered from people talking about how they made a video game.
Right.
The door is being knocked on.
You're
Anyways,
being
so it's
summoned.
it's yeah. So I mean, I think there's, for me, and the thing I want for some games, like not every game, but we're working on High Magic Low Lives is done, and we're working really hard on High Magic Low Lives, as one does when you just can't let something go. But one
Mm.
of the things I want for it is to have that long arc of support and and take the time to get a rule set I'm really, really, really happy with, and then keep writing settings and adventures and so on, and give it that sense that it's in the same way that you keep seeing playbooks for Monster Hearts pop up and so
Right.
on. But I think to do what I want to do with High Magic Low Lives, I need to figure out how writing adventures can be fun to do for me.
Right.
Um, and Geez was a ton of fun to write, but I do think it's something that I'm hoping I'd love to see more games do, and I'd love to see more games that ostensibly don't need adventures to do it anyways, because I it's not that I don't think that's true. I just think it's fun to do something more like Blaze in the Dark has all these like one page heist ideas, but like I don't need help with heist ideas. I need floor plans and like guard rotations and stuff. Like I need these details that
Right.
these if then statements and stuff. But I don't know. So I think there's something to it, and I think it's positioned frequently as this sort of adversarial, less design, more adventure thing, and I don't think that's necessary. I think it can be as much design as you want in there.
Right.
And I should stop to take a breath so this can be a conversation instead of a monologue. But also, I'm going to look up an example I'm thinking of because I can't remember it.
It's interesting, talking to you and listening to you talk about design and adventures and things that are exciting to you and some of the research that you're doing, it reminds me a lot of what like Jeremy Gage does when Jeremy's looking at game. Like the number of times that Jeremy has recommended that I watch the Boss Keys video series on YouTube, because he loves it, and I did watch some of it, and it's very cool stuff. Like he and you see the tech and like the things in video games that are worth like exploring as an inspiration space for us in RPG scenes, which is awesome. Because I also like to do stuff with video game space in the RPG space.
What to say?
But I like capturing the power fantasy side and the button that says do cool shit because that's what video games let us do. And I just said I want to do that. I want to hit that cool shit, do the cool shit button again and again and again. So it's cool to see more people looking at art or at the video game space and be like, we can learn from this. We can learn from this and we can adapt this into our stuff. Because
Yeah,
that's how you convince the video game gamers, the nerds, to come play our games. Is if they look at it and those nerds. I mean, I'm genuinely serious. Like I made light because well, first of all, I have an unhealthy obsession with Destiny, but
of
also
course.
because I play Destiny with my cousin who always played video games his entire life, never picked up an RPG, and I wasn't about to hand him Dungeons and Dragons and be like, "All right, let's play this." It would just simply not work. But like
Right.
when I showed him Light and I was like, "Do you see how this captures what Destiny is about?" And he got it. I was like, "Okay, I did it. I did the thing. That's what I wanted to do." Uh,
Yeah.
so I love harvesting it for that sort of stuff.
Oh yeah. I think about this a lot because there's sort of two sides to this, right? There's taking design influences from video games, which is fine and good because you should be taking design influences from trees and books and everything. And then there's when you see digital tools showing up for tabletop RPGs,
Mm,
and there's some kind of overlap there because I think to a certain kind of player, there is video games are a dirty word or whatever, and I think there are things that are special and unique about having just having play around a table and people bouncing ideas off each other where you are not restricted in the same way that you are in video games. And like sometimes you want really defined relationships between things, and sometimes you want to just let people say words and have a good time, and you don't want to lose that fit that type of play that is unique to tabletop RPGs. But I mean, I am one of those people who did not understand Dungeons and Dragons until fourth edition, because
Mm,
fourth edition has a bit more rigidity and a bit more procedure. And for me, which I am not all people, like it really helped me understand. Oh, if I sit down and I do these things, I will have run a dungeon dragon. Great,
yes.
bam. Um, and then on the other hand, you have stuff where it's like, okay, this app or this computer is going to help you run a tabletop RPG. And more often than not, I find those frustrating because it feels like they are automating out the fun part of being a game master for
Mm,
me. You know, they're automating out the like, don't worry, we've got story ideas for you. And it's like, I don't need those.
right.
I've got those. Like what I need is 100 names and to know what the weather is and all the stuff that like, and like all that the having just a sort of backdrop to make everything feel living or
Right.
something. I'm just like I really love Lancer's CompCon
Mm,
because it takes an incredibly complicated tactical RPG about giant mechs and A makes it possible to run for me as a person with other things going on in my life. And B, it feels good to use to
yeah.
sit in front of a screen and hit a power button and have like the UI change and now it's not like being in a mech, but it's a little bit like the little display you
Yeah.
would see if you were sitting in a mech. It'd be one of your little Evangelion like screens among the hey Shinji's freaking out ometer and so on. So um I think there's a lot of cool interplay between those things. I also think there doesn't have to be. I think there's a lot to learn from how video games do things if you're picky about
Mm,
what you take, you know.
right.
Yeah.
Um, two things jumped out at me, or one thing in particular jumped out at me. You mentioned the idea of like the thing that you want is like the wet like 100 names and weather and everything like that. There's a reason that the most opened PDF that I've ever opened up again and again for any RPG I've ever run is the Perilous Wilds, which is a supplement that was made for Dungeon World. Because I did a long-standing Dungeon World campaign years ago, and it is purely that. It is here's a bunch of tables to like randomly generate a beast. Here's a bunch of tables to randomly generate a monster. Here's a bunch of tables to randomly generate a homestead, and literally the weather and all of that stuff. And it's so good, and it really made the world feel alive and responsive and like engaging for the players, and all I needed to do was roll real quickly and be like, oh, there's a weird crystal bear in this cave? Cool. Let's figure out why there's a crystal bear in this cave. And it was awesome. Um, I love that sort of stuff. I'm also
Yeah.
notoriously bad at making it. So this is why, like, again, I hired Jeremy for Nova to make the tables because Jeremy's good at it and he made very
Yeah.
good tables. Um, Adam Bell said something real good in chat, and I
Okay.
want us to think about this. Give me more adventure supplements as rule supplements. Here's how you play this game as a political intrigue game, for example. I think that's really cool, right? Isn't that?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like an example that I've seen of this off the top of my head, and of course I'm failing in the moment. But I just love that idea of like, okay, you know the core experience. Have you considered trying it this way? Is very, very good.
Yeah. I have something for this, but I gotta all my stuff has to be protected from 2-year-olds. But I just read Lowlife,
Ah,
and it is about exactly one thing, which is caving. Did not expect to get the willies reading it, but it's that same. I mean, it's not an adventure. It's a game unto its own, but also it's that same kind of thing where it's like, uh, like here's a rule supplement and also a place or a situation that is about that to get to sort of yes, to give that I'm trying to think of something clever to say, but I can't quite stick the landing. Like games will sometimes come with that super slim starter adventure in the
Right.
back to be like, hey, here's a thing to get started, and it's just sort of like, all right, let's invert the weighting on that, where
Mm-hmm.
it's like here's a little bit of rules and then a lot of place to go and use that. Um I think there's a lot of I'm really interested in that. I wanna do more of that. It's gonna be a while before I get to,
Right.
but like really getting to flex that. The thing I was trying to think of earlier, by the way, is called Vast in the Dark, which
Mm.
is ostensibly a setting, but it's all tables for procedurally generating these horrible dark buildings in this side dimension you're stuck in, and there's no like, oh, here's the wizard's tower. It's like, okay, grab a handful of dice and throw it at the ground and that's a building, like, and here's how it all works. And maybe it doesn't make sense, but nothing in this place does. Good luck, have fun. And it was one of the ones where it was like, oh, you can fit, for me, it was a little influential just in the sense of like, oh, you can fit a lot of game in one of these bad boys. I say as
Yeah.
I'm banging the roof on a PDF.
It um that's my secret is I make settings that don't make sense anyway so that I can make any kind of scenario up that I want and be like, I don't know, it's an infinitely expanding city. What do you want from me? I don't know.
Yeah,
It's the dusk. There's anything out there.
yeah. What are you? The make sense cops? Like we
Right.
got we got bigger problems.
I love that sort of stuff. I think that's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, Adam has said to just wait a decade for him to finish his sci-fi game where we'll see this. So we'll just have to wait and see more
Oh,
examples of this.
man, the 2030s are really gonna pop off.
That's our time.
With all this, if I'm, if I look at the gym room games Gantt chart for what we're gonna get to work on, it's really, ooh, it's gonna be good stuff. Um, yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
can't even imagine. Can't even imagine. Don't even want to try and imagine. Essentially, every 2 pages of Down We Go was this. Each was a self-contained procedure. That is very cool. That stuff. That
Yeah,
Tony's saying that.
no, I mean it's super rad, and it's a way to like. I mean, like it took me a while because I came to reading OSR inspired stuff sideways. I came from reading the Gauntlet podcast, and
Mm,
like, I think the first one I read was Macchiato Monsters, which is itself explicitly a hack of White Hack and the Black Hack, which are both, I mean, it's I did not read it in order. And so I think there's sort of this, one of the things that I would love to do is sort of figure out this balance between the sort of, oh, well, you know how to do this, and so like, well, I don't know what a hit die is.
right.
The hell's a hit die? Just tell me how many hit points it has. Oh wait, and then eventually it's like, oh, I get it. Like, okay,
Dan, I still
uh
don't know what hit die are. I've
yeah,
seen it enough where I'm like, I can't be bothered to learn at this point.
this the thing no one will tell you is you can write games with hit die in them and not know how they work. You'll be fine. No one's just the big beefy boys have more of them, and it'll all take care of
Perfect.
itself. But yeah, like I think there's sort of this providing on ramps for that kind of thing, but also championing the sort of interoperability and assumption that like this adventure may have been written for game A, but here's how to run it in a bunch of other stuff or what have you. I think there are ways to have your cake and eat it too. On a lot of that stuff, and I think also it doesn't just have to be D&D inspired tabletop RPGs. I'm running out of ways to say Dungeon Dragon, but like you're extremely specific game about relationships and all that stuff. Like those games can enjoy this tech too,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
um I'm not sure exactly how yet, but we're getting there. We're figuring it out. you know we'll
You're
have
gonna figure it
something
out.
in a couple years.
You're gonna figure it out, and that's gonna be your $1 billion idea right there.
Yeah, exactly. We
Perfect.
took a game that does not need adventures and we said, okay, well, here's one anyways.
Just
I,
stuffing so many adventures into so many games.
yeah, we actually are working on once we finish our zine quest and once we finish our random adventure jam adventure, we have an idea for a setting book for Blades in the Dark that I'm really excited about, but I don't think I'm supposed to talk about it yet. But like
How could you
that,
do this to me, Dan?
yeah, I know, but the goal is to be like I love Blades in the Dark. Blades in the Dark is perfect for the way my brain works. It's just procedure heavy enough. I can't remember moves. Like I bounced off Dungeon World because it's like what what do you mean I gotta know what all this stuff like where's my note card so I can remember the procedures. Because but like Blaze in the Dark, I get it every time. And also I genuinely don't understand why they've got a governor's mansion in the book but no floor plans for a governor's mansion, because that would be sick. And like I want that Metal Gear Solid 5, like if then statement of like if you turn off the power then these things don't work and
Right.
all this fun stuff. And like so we're just gonna write our own in because also spoilers for a thing we're gonna work on later. They made a sequel to Penny Dreadful, or like a spin-off or something, about haunted mid-century Los Angeles, and it should have been so good. The city is so haunted.
Right.
The city is so haunted. The story of Dodger Stadium is just so gross, and it's such a beautiful stadium, and it's so the things that happen to those people to build it is just I mean, Chinatown scratches the surface. Like
Mm-hmm.
everything that had to happen. I've only read the first couple of chapters, but there's this great book called City of Quartz about the past and it's sort of the sociological history of the past and future of Los Angeles, and they do this great thing where they just break down like here's why everyone hates LA. Like they brought all these people from all over the world to direct movies for Los Angeles, and they brought them all from Paris and like all these great European directors, and they brought them all to Los Angeles, which is not a European city. And they said, make us these brilliant stories. And all they did was be like, we hate it here. And we're going to make movies about how we hate it here. And all these disaffected writers in the studio system were like, we hate having to write for the studio system. We're going to write detective stories about how awful this city is. And it's just Hollywood made so much money paying people to hate Los Angeles it's a cultural touchstone now that it's what you do. And on the other hand, they brought in a million PhD havers to do the aerospace industry and do weird science fiction and basically like really ramp up that apocalypse clock as fast as we get. Like every additional thing I learn about the history of Los Angeles, it's like I I love this city. I love living here. It's well, city. It's like 12. It's like it's a dozen mishmashed. It's like someone took the entire eastern seaboard and just went and until it was Baltimore next to Boston, and it doesn't make any goddamn sense. Um, but uh, it should not exist. It absolutely there if it is and it's nothing to do with the fact that it's near a desert. We're technically in a Mediterranean zone, but boy, oh boy, it should not exist like this. Holy smokes! Um, I think we got a Clovercam in the chat.
We do. She, I want to, but she's sitting next to my partner right now, and so I don't want
Um,
to inadvertently put my partner on cam right
you
now.
know, I think that's a Clovercam in the bank.
Yep, getting the
Um,
negative on that. So
yeah,
we'll
I
we'll
think that's
pocket that
just
one.
yeah, you're gonna save that one for that's something you can tweet about for the next one of these also is like, hey, we've got XYZ guest and also
And
we've got a guaranteed Clover cam.
that's how you
Uh
get butts in
um,
seats. That's how you get butts
yeah,
in seats.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
When Clover runs the
Uh,
Twitter account, so much more engagement, so much more people
no,
caring.
that's good stuff. Yeah, I mean, if I weren't worried about like the nature of social media and who we're giving our data to and blah blah blah, like I would just hand that Twitter account to Violet every day,
Hmm.
because like all she does is mash random letters and take really weird videos and be like, "Welcome to Gemroom Games. Here's our executive leadership, with an important message from who actually runs this." Um,
I'm
yeah,
I'm excited about this upcoming game that's being talked about in chat. What if LA didn't exist?
oh man. Well, unfortunately for Roland, what we're writing is, what if LA existed harder? Um, and which is basically Blade Runner, right?
Right.
Like Blade Runner is like, this is where we're the only critique there is that we're not going to get architecture as cool as the Tyrell Corporation pyramids. It's a big backslide there, but other than that, um,
Like the future's
uh,
unfair. They
yeah,
can't at least give us that.
yeah, I know. This is just the dumbest cyberpunk dystopia. It's just so stupid.
Speaking of
The wrong
cyberpunk,
books. They read the
Cybers,
wrong books.
they did. How
Like,
about that cyborg?
yeah, yeah. Cyborg looks sick. Cyborg is why we wrote Duckborg, is because
That's right.
somebody leaked or they like teased Cyborg, and then the Brain Trust Discord did a bunch of Borg jokes, and then I wrote as soon as I hit enter on Life is Like a Hurricane here in it was like, oh no, I
This has
spoke
to
the word, I
happen.
said I spake them, and now they must be. And thank God I knew Rob Bear because he did all the art, and without it, it would. I mean, it would have worked, but it wouldn't have worked. Um,
That art is
it
so,
reminds me, I owe
so
him
good.
money. Anyways, um, we got a revenue share thing going, but that means I gotta
Yeah,
I gotta like do math on every quarter and send him a couple $100.
right. That's awesome. That's very
Yeah,
cool.
no. Talk to Robbie Bear about doing the art for Disney your Disney inspired dark fantasies.
I know. Now I'm thinking about which one I would make just for that.
I feel like I do a Tailspin. Tailspin's
Mm,
pretty well set up for a like what was that, Crimson Skies or whatever, that sort of like biplane.
yeah,
Yeah, one of those.
that'd
You
be
could you
cool.
could do a Porco Rosso pretty easy with a tailspin. That'd be a winner.
Josh is a fan of the tailspin in chat,
I can
so
see that. Josh has excellent taste.
Josh does have good taste.
You see
Um,
that monolith thing that he just did that came out, looks gorgeous.
oh, that Josh did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait,
Every
no, it's the monolith edition of Extra
of extra
Causal.
causal. Yeah. Every
Yeah, no, that's some hot stuff.
Josh is very good
Yeah,
at design
yeah, no,
and
we're
stuff.
still trying to figure out our art style over here, which is rapidly becoming buy a bunch of brushes on Black Friday
Mm-hmm.
and make photo collages and then draw over them until they look all weird and gross. And it's
Nice.
sort of like, okay, this is going to be the Gemroom Games art style, and hopefully that means we can make some stuff without having to have money. Anyway,
Josh doesn't know this yet, but I'm going to be knocking on his door when I get back to working on Void because Josh is the person I think about when I think of coming up with weird void bullshit. So I'm very
Yeah,
excited
yeah,
about
yeah,
that.
yeah. That WVB. Yeah,
Yeah,
gotta
exactly.
have that WVB
That's my brand.
in an RPG. That's why they rhyme.
Right, exactly. Well, Dan, this has been a very fun coffee break here. I'm out of coffee over here. I don't know how you're doing on coffee, but
Um,
we did it.
my lead runs dry.
We drank the coffee. Is there
We
anything
did
else that
drink
you're
the
like
coffee.
super excited about and like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I didn't mention this thing?
Let's see. So, the big thing that we're talking about right now is the Weavers Observatory. We're going to do a cover reveal soon, and I think I'm really excited about it. It's something that is tonally very different from what we've written before. There are way fewer chainsaws in it than our typical body of work, and a lot more reflections on how, if you went back and changed the things from your life that you regret, would that also change who you are now, which fundamentally means you've kind of killed the self you are now to create a different self. So, like real sad, like
Jesus
um,
Christ.
reflections on life and regret. Um, Real excited to bum some people out, which is not what we tend to do. So I really hope it works. I really hope people enjoy it. The art's great. The art's taken care of. I'm more worried about the prose living up to the spirit of that. And then we're going to pivot really hard and be talking about our Zine Quest project, which is about uh, in a post-human world where human beings essentially take the same world we view Cthulhuoid elder gods, death metal Viking cats trying to get into Valhalla, but they have 9 lives, so it's really hard. So look out for that. But we don't have the marketing materials for that yet. So
How dare
we
you
gotta
so
kind of pivot on a
casually throw
dime.
that out? That's
Yeah,
amazing.
and then we're gonna take a breath, and then we're gonna work on a big project.
That's awesome.
Um, yeah, trying to work on a couple of things at the same time. But for right now, I don't know. Join our mailing list. We got a mailing list. Go to gemroomgames.com and find the link to our mailing list. And then you'll find out about this stuff. Um,
Boom.
without getting to enjoy our lovely company.
Hell yeah. The link is in chat, folks. Dan obviously is making some very cool stuff. Go subscribe to that newsletter. Oh my God, I can't wait. Like, just those two things that you're like, oh yeah, we're also doing these two things. Just amazing. Just amazing.
Yeah.
I don't,
We got the manuscript for one and the art for another. And if we were smart, we would just make a really sad reflection on life about death metal Viking cats. But
it's not how life works.
sometimes you just got to let the scope creep happen and let it wash over you and bite off more than you can chew while maintaining a day job and raising 2 kids who aren't in school yet.
As you do.
As
As
you
one
do, I
does.
forget sleep. What is that like?
That's why we have coffee breaks.
Cool, cool, cool.
That's awesome. Dan, this was a blast. Thanks so much for coming and hanging out with me.
I'd love to do it again.
Absolutely.
We'll have you on the Fallout stream. You can help me
Yeah.
figure out how the hell games from the '90s worked. Um, just
We'll just
recently had to go back in time 2 real world weeks because it turns out Fallout 1 has a 100-day timer where a random city gets invaded by super mutants and kills everyone there, and you can't talk to anyone. And so I had to go way back in time and, like, all right, that's 2 weeks worth of stream that we're just going to erase because I want to talk to these people.
Oh
And then they
damn.
were jerks. I did time travel to save their lives, and they were dicks about it. Ugh.
The 90s is a cruel
Fallout's one of
time
my
for
favorite
video
games of all
games.
time, but man, it's bringing me down. Good
Well, yeah,
boy.
I'm definitely gonna come hang out there then.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, folks, thanks so much for joining us for this coffee break. I hope you got caffeinated or relaxed or just had a good time. I'll be back next week for coffee break. Riley, yes, I think Riley is next. Riley is next, and then after that, the Drakes. That'll get us through November, and then we got a whole bunch of people I got to figure out for December. So appreciate everybody coming out and hanging out with us. Appreciate you, Dan, for coming and chatting. We
Of
will talk
course.
to you all later.
Have a good one.